How would you like to be able to build a real estate business in New York? Scott Harris will tell us how. He's a top New York City agent, and he has empowered thousands of home buyers and sellers while marketing and selling over $1.5 billion in residential real estate in New York City for them. So, Scott, please tell us, how can entrepreneurs build a property business in New York?
Property Wealth Strategies podcast with Lily Patrascu shares world's most influential property investors, sharing their strategies for making money with property.
Well, the way you put that, Lily, first, thanks for having me on. The way you put it, it sounds, oh my God, how do I build this big, scary real estate business? Like it's this huge, scary thing that I'll never be able to sell $1.5 billion or $2 billion of real estate. So the way you build it is one step at a time. And so if someone's out there starting out, hey, I want to build a really successful residential real estate business, it starts today with a few steps. It's about relationships first and foremost. And I would even say that if you want to be successful right out of the gate, the most important thing you can do is make sure that you're putting your clients first and that you really are clear how much you care about them and their success.
Thank you. Tell us about your journey of how you started building your real estate portfolio and why did that work?
Well, I feel really lucky that it did work. First, I'll say that. My journey was not, hey, go to college, finish, and then start into real estate. I took a very roundabout way of getting there. And I started in the music business when I was 22. I did both performance on stage, and I also was behind the scenes putting bands on the road. And booking bands and working through the process of helping to get bands on tour, and then also really locate the people making decisions on who's gonna be that, they call it a talent buyer, the person putting the band into the venue. It turned out to be really good practice on working with people to identify, what is that thing that they would love. And then the touring piece was very complicated at times. And so what I found, a lot of people think, hey, you're New York City, Scott. This is so complicated. And not only that, but also very competitive. I found that when I started doing real estate in New York, I was dealing with everybody needs a roof over their heads, Lily, right? And so I found that helping people find a home was taking all the different things I had learned about people and about all the different sales skills I had learned in my 20s. It came together. I actually found that real estate was a much easier thing than some of the jobs that I had done before.
Thank you. Tell us about your unique selling point. What kind of residential properties are you going for and why?
Well, what I would say is New York City is a little bit different than a lot of markets. It's the biggest city in America. It's one of the most expensive real estate markets in the world. And then at the same time, everybody here kind of puts their shoes on. What is it? They put their shoes on one foot at a time. Is that that's the saying? They're still people. And so one of the things, as I think about it, it's my unique ability is to treat them like people. They're not a transaction. They're going through something much bigger. There's this emotional world underneath the transaction, and that's where all the energy is. So if you can kind of strip away all of that first level of fear about the money, how much is it going to cost? How am I going to find something? There's a lot of fear there, Lily, like at that first layer. And if you can my unique thing was just, I listen and I ask provocative questions that kind of shake things up a bit. And all of a sudden people relax and they start to open up. I'm like a bartender, where I sit there and I just ask questions and let people talk, not except when I'm doing a podcast recording. But I really feel like a lot of it is it's almost being a therapist, which is kind of a cliche in a lot of ways, but the best real estate agents, I think, are the best listeners. And they're not only listening to what people say, but what they don't say. And you're helping people unpack what they think like creating the first draft of the vision for what they really want. And then you're like testing that vision again and again and again. You're pushing at it, you're poking at it. And if you do it right, people will really quickly realize, wait a minute, I have a checklist of things that I want, and this thing checks all of the boxes and I still don't love it. What's wrong? And so for me, the unique piece of this is that I'm able to really listen, kind of get through what people think they want and really start to identify what is that thing that they actually would love, and then get that more and more clear over time. But if I pause for a second and I go back to the beginning of this, when you tell me, Lily, hey, I want to buy this home, I firmly believe with every fiber of my being that we're going to make this happen together. And I think that faith, that belief in the person that I'm with, we're going to do this. That underpins the whole project. And I think that belief in the person in front of me, we're going to figure this out, we're going to do it. I think that is, more than anything else, is the key to my success.
Thank you. Which property investment opportunities have you identified in New York? And I'm saying in this market, and why does that?
Well, in terms of identifying, let me make sure I'm hearing you right. You mean with, like what kind of deals have I put together in this market?
Yeah. Like why would people like invest in your specific projects? Like what kind of angle do you have? Is it that you do you find properties that can be refurbished, or what's your exact like opportunity?
Well, I meet people where they are, Lily. So what I would say is there are some buyers, and I have to, when I meet them, I have to start to understand what are they really looking for. So some buyers want a property they don't have to renovate at all. Some home buyers want to find something that they can make their own. And so I've had a buyer, for instance, this year already, who closed on an $11 million 5-bedroom apartment in a brand new building. We looked at lots of different kinds of buildings, but this building had a lot of different features that made it really exciting for them. They're retired, they've built significant wealth over their careers, and they want something that really feels like easy. So we identified something in a brand new building right on Central Park. If you're familiar with Central Park, it's very famous in New York. Other buyers have decided, hey, I'm going to buy a property that I can completely renovate from top to bottom. Now, if you ask me what's the quote unquote value, I would say that the value in New York today is in properties that you can renovate it and add something special to. But value means a lot of different things to different people. So there's no one answer that works for people. It's really a process of discovery, of me getting to know the client and then helping them figure out what's the right move for them.
Thank you. Are there any particular regularities in terms of, people wanting specific things? And have you found an angle in the market where you can make this happen for them?
Well, it's not an angle in the market. I would say, I'll answer it in this way, Lily. What I would say is, the best time, if you've heard this, like when's the best time to plant a tree? And the answer is 25 years ago. And the second best time to plant a tree is today. Over the last 20 years, I've built relationships in the marketplace. So my angle is information. My angle is knowing all the players in the market. Who are the 20% of the agents who do 80% of the business, and building a reputation over 20 years so that when I pick up the phone or I email them, hey, this is Scott from Magnetic, people go, oh, I want to pick up the phone. I represent lots of qualified buyers. When I bring a property to market, the buyers, this must be, this is a well-vetted property, things like that. So I think the angle is relationship.
Thank you. What is the blueprint for someone to build a real estate business in New York? What are the steps that they would need to consider?
Well, every person, when I talk to my team and I'm trying to help my team member grow their business, what I tell them is you're not this two-dimensional piece of cardboard that, carries around selling real estate. You're a person with a whole story behind you and a whole unique set of skills. So What does that mean is that I have team members who were on Broadway, and team members who are professional chefs, and team members who were in all sorts of different businesses. And some of them are more focused on the operational. Some are focused more on, they do a really good job of creating the vision for people. Some people are just really personable. They're just so likable that you just trust them. And you have to really understand yourself and both your strengths and your weaknesses so that you can engage those people where they are. So in terms of building a business, I would say it's getting to know yourself really, really well. What are your skill sets? And then creating marketing around that. Are you comfortable writing newsletters? We always have to do marketing. So it's not like every person needs to do video. Some people are better with Instagram marketing, where it's just photos, or they do email newsletters. So there's a whole host of things you need to do. Some people are so well connected, they just have a really terrific network. And so they want to leverage the network in order to get business. There was a fun article a couple years ago about clients. If you're in a different market than New York, you might do 150 sales in a year and not even sell $75 million of real estate. In New York, you could do 3 deals in a year and sell $75 million of real estate. So it takes all different kinds, and you have to identify where you're coming from, where you want to go, what are the circles that you're in. You have to constantly build your network. You have to constantly be willing to ask for business. But I think more than anything, you have to constantly be so curious, learning about the market, learning new information, what's going on behind the scenes, so that ultimately, when people engage with you, they know this is a person I like, this is a person I can trust, and ultimately this is a person who has my best interests at heart.
Thank you. What's the best way to build a passive real estate portfolio in New York, knowing that you have no knowledge of the area or of the trends or like really anything?
Well, there's this funny saying. It's how do you build a small fortune? Start with a really big fortune and then lose a little bit of it. So if you're asking how do you build passive income in New York, and we have clients who they want to do that, and I think I applaud them because I think real estate offers a really great opportunity. That in America, there's lots of tax benefits. It's very tax advantageous to own real estate. I would start, often the people I hear who are building it and my clients, if they're not coming from really high earning backgrounds, they buy an apartment, say a condominium, one that they can hold and then rent out to new tenants. They live in it. They might fix it up. They're able to buy it at a price that feels good. They take a mortgage, and the rates they get on the mortgage are beneficial for homeowners. And then they build up enough wealth there so that the property itself is actually cash flow positive. And so for the first few years, actually, I would say building that passive income is going to be challenging in New York because the rates of return are very low. You could even see a 2% return here. And if you compare that to like 5% in a bond, it may not look as exciting, but in New York, you have appreciation. So the difference, I think, between New York City real estate and almost everywhere else is that you're building kind of a portfolio for capital appreciation. And so you need to decide, I have a lot of clients who are in high tech. Real estate in New York is like a blue chip stock, like a boring investment for them that they can hold and diversify their portfolio. And I would just say, if you have questions about investing in properties in New York, just be in touch. I'm sure my contact information will be in the show notes, and we can answer your questions about neighborhoods and things like that.
Thank you. What's currently in high demand that could become a good investment portfolio for investors?
Well, I would say that often what's in demand, it may not be the property that's going to end up being the best investment right now. And so what I would say is there are certain areas, really, Lily, that Brooklyn right now is probably even hotter than Manhattan. So the investment play is to buy in boring, quote unquote, Manhattan and get a good opportunity here and then carry it and hold it until Manhattan is, comes out, it sort of comes out of its of this sort of slightly low period. And that's going to happen as soon as mortgage rates start to drop.
Thank you. What advantage is there to invest in New York versus other areas of USA?
Well, I touched on it before, but what separates New York is that in many ways it's such a sought after world capital that it doesn't dip as much. It's not as volatile as towns like Miami, say, that have high highs but really low lows when everybody pulls out. Everybody wants to be in New York. People come to New York. People love New York. Everyone wants to have the story, oh, I lived in New York for a couple of years, blah, blah, blah. So New York is one of these places where there's always this built up demand. It's an incredible city with culture and everything else. And ultimately people want to be here. So it's just a special place to be. I think that's what really separates it from every other market. I tell my team all the time, I feel so lucky that we happen to be real estate agents here. Did that answer your question?
Yes. Tell us what else you'd like entrepreneurs to know about building their real estate portfolio business
Well, entrepreneurs, and I'm a runner. I'm not super fast, but I am a runner. And I often think I use the metaphor of a marathon. And so if there's something else I'd tell entrepreneurs is, and especially as I'm launching, not only helping people over time and building a business, but I've also just launched an independent real estate company called Magnetic. And I would say it's a marathon, not a sprint. You can do what you can do today, create a big vision for what you're looking to do, and then take action every single day. And you're going to look back at the end of a year and go, wow, I really made progress. I learned new skills. I'm a much better entrepreneur than I was at the beginning of the year, and just continue to build on that. And you're going to see progress and you're going to see growth, and it's going to be really exciting.
Thank you. What are some property deals that lead to really high cash flow in New York? What are some good opportunities for entrepreneurs who, let's say, wouldn't mind renovating, refurbishing, so that they can have like a higher cash flow over the long term?
Historically speaking, the best way to do this is to find opportunities in emerging neighborhoods. So where the rents have moved up much faster than the property values. And I would say, these are more risky purchases, but Upper Manhattan, anything from Harlem and up has been areas where people have seen better returns because the real estate taxes are lower. And I would say the same thing we looked at a lot of properties in the Bronx 10 or 15 years ago. That was an incredible area. I think it's a little harder to find opportunities now. But in terms of the 5 boroughs of Manhattan, you can certainly find opportunities. And then if you look in Brooklyn, sometimes the taxes are also still very low relative to the rents you can get. And then Manhattan, again, like I said before, Manhattan is not these like enormous cash flowing assets. Manhattan is like the playground for the wealthy in many cases, and the returns are very stable, but they're not super high.
Thank you. Tell us 3 case studies of property investors you've worked with that have been able to get their dream portfolio or their dream house, and how did that work out for them in terms of like cash flow or appreciation?
Okay. I want to make a distinction between someone finding their dream house and someone having a home that is this incredible investment. I'm not saying that your home isn't a great investment, but the way we really think about it is that your home is the launch pad for the life that you really want to create, and that it's not just what your house or your apartment does for you in terms of itself capital appreciation, but what it enables you to do everywhere. Does that make sense? So I would use I'll tell a couple of fun stories about people who had interesting journeys to their dream home. We recently represented a couple who were looking on the Upper West Side of Manhattan. This is on the west side of Central Park. And we found an apartment. They really loved the building. Everything was great. We put it in offer and it was accepted. And then we were going to the process of getting into contract, which is a little different here than in other markets. But in the time between when the seller accepted their offer and when they were able to sign the contract, the husband lost his job. Okay. And they were super heartbroken, but they couldn't move ahead. They couldn't make the purchase. So they backed off. In fact, they weren't married yet. They were engaged. Fast forward about 10 months, he had a new job, and sure enough, this property was back on the market. And we were able to not only buy it they were not only able to buy it, but they bought it for like 8 or 9% lower than what they were supposed to buy it the year before. So they already loved the house. Now they got it for much less. So they were so excited. And they're very happy there, and they haven't sold it. So I can't tell you, what the appreciation level is. I had another client who was looking to buy something in Harlem. This is a few years ago, and he found a building that he really loved. We negotiated it. We sold it to him, and then he got this dream through his company where he was working in California. So he all of a sudden had met a girl, got a dream job in California, and we had to sell the property a year after he bought it. And somehow the timing was so perfect that he actually made about 10% on his home in just that short time. And he was just over the moon excited about that opportunity. That was really fun for him. And I'll tell you another one. This is really, this again has to do with people who see their home as something more than just the investment. But during COVID, so this is about 5 years ago, we negotiated a contract for a husband and wife for a family. This was a penthouse apartment in Manhattan. I won't tell you where. And it took us about 4 months to negotiate the contract, which was crazy. And then COVID happened, and we spent 2 years negotiating because they were very worried that they had overpaid before the pandemic started. We ended up working with a developer to make these small repairs, all of these different things. And at the end of it, they were just so delighted to have exactly the home they wanted. They needed to kind of pressure test it again and again and again to make sure that everything was just perfect. And they have done owning that home has opened up. I mean, to just say that these people are already very successful, and they have become so incredibly successful over the last 5 years since they've moved into this home, that it's remarkable. And I know the customizations that they did to make this home perfect for them. And so again, like I said before, Lily, it's like your home is, I believe your home is the launch pad for this life you're trying to create. And if you have a home that you really, really love, it opens up all sorts of doors, not just the investment part of it, but like all the different areas of your life that are going to come into kind of blossom.
Thank you. Do you have any funny story related to you helping property investors to build their real estate business in New York?
I mean, all the time we end up with pretty crazy stories. Some of them are. What I like to say is that, I'm a very compassionate person. I don't love poking fun at people. It's not the way I go through the world. But we had a situation a few years ago, and it all worked out well at the end. But the day before the closing, I represented the buyer. The seller literally went into cardiac arrest, and we thought that he might die. And if he died, the apartment would have had to go into probate, and then the whole deal would have fallen apart. And so the wife and the kids for the seller were scrambling to the hospital to get him to sign paperwork just in case. And everything worked out. It was a very fraught situation for my buyers, but everything worked out, and that was kind of insane. And we've had, lots of other situations where it's almost, I mean, the best way I describe it, Lily, is that when we're helping someone buy or sell a home, they're often at their most stressed out. Like we're meeting them at their most, they often will go like crazy. Like people will call me and I'm like, who is this person talking to me? Right? Like who are you? Like I know you before and this isn't you. So a lot of the times it's me kind of navigating the nuttiness of people when they're at their most stressed. So maybe not as funny, maybe not the most funny answer you got.
Okay, I'm happy it all worked out. Tell us where entrepreneurs can find you.
Sure. Well, I have a book coming out in October. So if people want to visit pursueyourhome.com, they can go and they can pre-order the book and they can find out all about it. Okay. If you go and Google The Pursuit of Home, you can certainly find the book on sale, pre-order through all different channels where people buy books. And if they want to follow me, I'm Scottie Harris, Scottie Harris, and that's an Instagram. And if you look me up on LinkedIn, you can follow me and learn all about what it's like to launch a real estate company and run a real estate business in Manhattan on a day-to-day basis. It's a lot of fun. And I share all the different stuff that we're going through to help buyers and sellers and build a business.
Thank you.
Follow me for more property wealth strategies.